Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with my, as promised, baby shark birthday card that I said I was going to make after I did the My Favorite Things June 2020 release and review video. So I die cut all the pieces for the baby shark, and then I took the inner piece that is kind of almost left over from the mouthpiece. You could die cut it from pink cardstock or red cardstock if you wanted, but I decided to just sponge ink onto it. So I'm just using some worn lipstick distress ink and blending that onto this piece of cardstock over a little, this is a little Ranger non-stick craft sheet. It comes in much larger sizes. I honestly don't know how I got the smaller size. I think it was maybe in a kit at some point, or it came with something. I didn't bother cutting any of my craft sheets down. Obviously, if I needed to, I could have, because this is a little convenient one to have in hand, and I just came across it the other day. I forgot I owned it. So that's what I was working on today. So I blended on that ink, and then I'm going to start adhering everything. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but when you die cut the main part, like the body of the baby shark, it embosses all the lines to line everything up, making it super simple to adhere everything. So that's what I was using as my little guide of where to adhere all the pieces. Now I just started adhering them down with craft tacky glue. So I started with the piece that I'd sponged with the worn lipstick ink, and then I'm adhering these great big old teeth over them. There's just something about shark images, which is funny. I think I've mentioned this before. The couple of times I've gone on the ocean, I have a deathly fear of sharks. Just the thought freaks me out. Shark movies, all that stuff. I'll watch them and they terrify me. But shark stamps and shark wafer dyes, it's the same thing with spiders. I absolutely hate them. Can't. But when it's Halloween and spider themed products and wafer dyes and stamps, I'm all over it. It's bizarre. Anyway, I really like the shark, especially the baby shark stuff, because I have a little person in this household who really enjoys baby shark. We have the t-shirts and all those things. So I made this, even though his birthday was actually a couple months ago. Still had to make him a 5th birthday card baby shark themed, because why not? So I got everything adhered into place. There's even the embossed outline for the eyes. So again, everything's just lined up and simple. And then once I had everything adhered, I actually went in with my favorite white gel pen. This is a Jelly Roll 10, so the widest gel pen. Hands down, my absolute favorite. Regardless, though, when it comes to white gel pens, the biggest issue people have is them drying up, not working, skipping, etc. If you're not using them consistently, they just dry up. I think the reason why I love this one so much is because I use it all the time. It doesn't sit very long. I'm always using it, every probably few days sort of a thing. So if you find you have a lot of trouble with gel pens, a lot of times it's because it's just not being used often enough, and it just dries up, and no matter what you do, it doesn't seem to want to unstick. So hopefully that helps. But anyway, so I added a little white gel pen to the eyes and little dots and highlights to the little shark. And then, of course, when it comes to cards for my kids, or just often when I do custom cards, I like to obviously spell out their name. So I pulled out the Pumped Up Alphabet Die-Namics. So they're little letters, but they're balloons. And I had bought the Pumped Up numbers because, again, birthdays. So I die cut white cardstock with the letters and the number, and then I die cut the same letters and number from the MFT Summertime Polka Dots 6x6 paper, because of course you want some polka dotted rainbow balloons for your birthday, because who wouldn't? So I adhered the pattern paper ones to the white die cuts. I just used the heavyweight white cardstock because it gives it a nice extra weight, because I did plan on, I'm going to add some baker's twine. I'm going to pop things up with dimensionals, all that kind of stuff. So it just gives it that extra strength versus just the pattern paper. So did all that. Set that aside. Now I got to create my scene. So of course I'm going to do a Slimline card, because I really am just obsessed with them. But people have been asking me why, what's the thing with Slimline cards? I think it's not a new size. They've been around for years and years and years, really. But my thing is, I'm just really enjoying them because I can, customize my envelopes. There's more envelopes available, etc. And it's just something I'm really enjoying. And this is a size that, for me, I can easily mail out, whereas things like 5x7 and other some of the other off sizes are harder for me to mail out because I have a harder time getting envelopes and whatnot for them. Whereas Slimline, it's just been simple. I've shown a bunch of videos using, and then I use the Trinity Stamps Slimline envelope die. In this case, obviously, I'm not using an envelope because he's in the house. I don't need to mail it to him. But anyway, for the background, I used the Ocean Motion stencil from MFT, of course, with Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink. And I'm just pulling the ink basically off the stencil using my little blending foam. And I'm going to add a bit more of the ink as well to the background, just kind of blending it in, just deepening it a little bit. I just kept rotating that stencil so I got that whole textured background. And then I used the Ocean Motion Die-Namics as well, just to die cut the top. And then I'm going to blend along the top too, just to kind of remove that obvious edge between the wave and the cardstock. And then after I did that, of course, I'm going to add some splatter. So I'm just going to smush that Faded Jeans Distress Oxide powder right onto that little craft sheet. I'm just going to add a little bit of water. Finally got my hands on just a little like dropper bottle that I just keep filled with distilled water. Another thing people ask me about the whole, like me saying specifically distilled water more and more lately. The only reason I say that is I just buy it by, you know, a jug of it. I keep it in my office. When it comes to distilled water, it's just nicer when crafting because it doesn't get gross, you know, because sometimes depending on what's in, you know, your tap water, whatever, when it's sitting for a very long time, sitting in a container, whatever, things can happen, you know, things can change. So, but it doesn't like make that big of a difference. Like if you're just using a little bit of water for watercoloring, I use tap water. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I keep, the containers I keep in my office, I keep filled with distilled water. It just makes life a little bit less iffy sometimes. So anyway, did that splatter, set all that aside, did the sentiments, which were the SHARKY sentiments stamp set, stamped them onto black cardstock. I used my anti-static powder tool, stamped the sentiments with clear embossing ink, coated it with detail white embossing powder, melted it with my heat tool. And then the main sentiment that I'm using on the outside of the card, I trimmed with my paper trimmer. So I just trimmed that down into a nice little strip. And then the other two, I'm going to die cut. I'll mention that later. So I've got all my sentiments. So now I want to adhere baker's twine to the back of these to make them balloons. So I have this beetle black doodle twine. I could wax nostalgic about this. Apparently you can still get doodle twine. Like I think Doodlebug still makes it. It's just really hard to find. Like really hard. I've been hoarding doodle twine for years. I love it. I want it all to come back. I would order multiples because this one is, it's the size of it I love. Doodlebug did a chunky twine, not the biggest fan of. I found it too bulky for my cards, so I never use it. But this regular doodle twine, just the weight of it, the thickness of it, it's like perfect. It's not too flimsy, but it's not too thick. I love it. Please, companies, can you all just order doodle twine and start restocking it because I love it. So anyway, I used the beetle black. The black and white, of course, is my absolute favorite. I need multiples of this. I'm almost like completely out of it, but for one of my kids' birthday cards, I will use it. So what I did to adhere it, I just showed here on camera, is I'm just using really narrow score tape. I put a little tiny piece down, stuck the end of the doodle twine to it, after peeling off the backing, and then stuck a second piece just on top of it to like sandwich it in. And I didn't remove the backing off the second piece because there's no point. Just I've done it this way. I've shown in other videos over the years when I'm dealing with little balloon images. I'll tape things down. I'll use like multimedia matte adhesive. Anything is going to work really. Like it just kind of depends. I found the score tape with these was just a lot faster than what I normally do with dabs of, you know, adhesive, letting it dry, fiddling, etc., etc. So I attached the baker's twine to all of the balloon letters and the number. And then my card base is just some light blue cardstock that I had cut to 7 inches by 8.5 inches. And then I'm going to score it at 3.5. So this will be a 3.5 by 8.5 inch slimline card. For me, that is pretty much my go-to sizing. I've done, again, other sizes over the years, but this one is the easiest to do because you can just take a full sheet of cardstock, trim off like 3.5 inches, and you've got your base for your slimline cards. So I ended up trimming off a bit from that wave piece because I didn't want it to be too tall to cover the entire card. I wanted the top portion so I have a little sky going on. So I'm going to adhere that with my craft tacky adhesive. And then for the little clouds, I pulled out the Cute Cloud Outlines Die-Namics from MFT that came out forever ago. Yeah, pulled those out, and I die cut some white cardstock with them, as well as some like just blue or navy cardstock, just to kind of give it that little extra something. So after I die cut all those, I figured out, you know, where I wanted to place them, and then the excess ones I'm just going to put back in the packaging for the next time I go to use this set. So I kind of layered the clouds and the outlines on here. So I've got a little scene, you know, with the ocean and all the little clouds. And then I adhered them into place with that craft tacky adhesive, letting some of them hang off the edge because I'm just going to trim these off with scissors. But then once I've got these adhered into place, my little background scene is complete. So I just used a little really tiny little dabs of the adhesive on all of these little clouds. And then once those are adhered, I can flip this over and then just trim off all the parts that are hanging over the edge of the card with my scissors. And then for all of the balloons, my little shark, etc., I'm going to adhere these with foam tape. So for all the little balloons, I'm just using my little Doris foam strips because they're narrow and it's quick and easy and I love them. And I peeled off the backing on both sides of these because that makes them completely flexible. So I'm not having to snip a ton of little pieces. I can just work my way around each of these balloons. It's just perfect this way. So this didn't take very long at all. So I just put adhesive on the back of all of these balloons and then arranged them. I had already made sure when I was like fiddling with this card that his name would fit on a Slimline card like this. With a couple of my other kids, I would have to do either a landscape card or a different card size to actually fit their names. But yeah, made sure it all fit before I even started. So then all I have to do now is just apply the Doris foam strips and then adhere all of his name and then the birthday one, which I adhered a little bit lower. And I decided to make it look like the little shark. I wasn't originally going to do this, but then I was like, the way everything was kind of coming together, I was like, okay, I can make it look like he's actually holding on to all these balloons with his little fins. So I adhered the baby shark with foam tape. All the word strings I put behind him. Just it worked better that way. Otherwise it was like basically going to cover him up. But the one for the number, I just kind of pulled it down and I just put a dab of the craft tacky glue right on his little fin, press the baker's twine into it, and then I just have to let that dry. So then he's holding that one in the front. And then for the sentiment, I put more foam tape on that and just kind of popped it along the bottom of the card because it just kind of fit perfectly in place there. So then once I've got that, for the inside of the card, I made a second shark. This one I did pink. This is Mommy Shark. They do have specific colors. I had to look that up to see what color Mommy Shark actually was. And I was sure it was pink, but had to make sure. So I made a Mommy Shark and I adhered her to the inside of the card. And then the other sentiments that I'd stamped from the Sharky sentiments set, I die cut these with, I think they're essential sentiment balloons. So I'm knocking things over. Essential speech bubbles. I don't think this Die-Namics set is available anymore, hence me not showing the die cutting or anything, but anything will work. But they just happen to fit. It all just happened to work. So I die cut it with those and then I adhered them to the inside of the card. So today's going to be jawsome. You're fantastic. Love it. Love it. Love the puns. All of it. So I adhered that to the inside of the card. And then as a final bit of embellishment that of course I had to do, and that's actually what I just knocked over, are the Studio Katia. I have the iridescent bubbles and I have the clear round drops. So clear bubbles, clear and iridescent bubbles. So of course I'm going to add those all along here because it's just too cute not to. And then once I was happy with the placement of them, I'm going to adhere them into place with my embellishment wand and my craft tacky adhesive. The craft tacky adhesive behind the clear ones, it will dry clear at first. When you first adhere it, it kind of looks like milky, you know, because the adhesive is white, but it will dry clear, so it'll be fine. So I'm going to adhere all of these into place. And then once these are all glued down, this card is complete. It was so much fun to make. These products are just beyond adorable, of course, and I love it. So as always, I will have links to everything with the exception of the baker's twine. I'll link to a similar one. The Mayarts one is similar. It's still heavier. Please, somebody, anyone, doodle twine, all of it. Reorder it. Anyway, I will have links to everything except for the twine and those essential speech bubbles in the description box below the video, as well as on my blog. There'll be a direct link to my blog, picture links to all the supplies, etc. You can check that out below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye!